We're back, baby. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman in studio, here to talk about the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles and who they might hire as offensive coordinator. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman. Zach, how the hell are you? Nice to see you. I've missed you. I haven't seen you in so long.
We went about 16 hours apart. That's the longest.
Too long.
That's the longest we've been apart.
16 hours. Also, your combined sleep for the past week.
It doesn't matter. No one wants to hear about the sleep. They only want to hear about the work. So what matters here is that the last time we were in this studio, the Eagles were preparing for the Super Bowl, and now they are Super Bowl champions. And on Friday, I'm getting my directions correct. That way, there is going to be a parade. It's actually that way and that way. Because it's on South Broad.
It's there, and then it
exactly.
Sort of wraps around all the way that
That's
way.
what I'm saying, yeah. So I was just getting my orientation correct. But there will be a parade on Broad Street on Friday.
And the listeners are happy to know that you will be there.
It sounds that way. Not official, but yeah, it sounds that way.
Okay.
Yes.
Married?
No,
married.
What does that mean?
Yes, that's French.
I don't know French. I know.
Maybe you're never gonna learn.
I know j'adore les PHLY Eagles.
Paris Campbell.
I did take French in 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade. Wasn't particularly good at it, but I remember some of it, not all of it.
My favorite part of French class from 7th and 8th grade was you know how you got like a big whiteboard and there's the little ledge where the markers go. We used to play a game called Jeux Olympiques before the teacher arrived, where we would try to go as back as far as possible and throw the markers to land in the ledge. And I think I was the greatest player at this game who's ever.
It doesn't surprise me that you think so.
Yeah, I mean, one of my greatest skills of all time. I was fantastic, and hopefully that becomes an Olympic sport at some point.
So how's your French?
Very mediocre.
Okay. But the Eagles are not mediocre. The Eagles are Super Bowl champs.
And that'll do it for this episode of the Super Bowl champion PHLY Eagles podcast. No, if you want to celebrate the Eagles championship, go to the PHLY store. Get your hands on some of this merch. The gold standard. What are we, the dream team? What's going on here with these phrasings? What are we going to do? Is T.O.'s second year? What's going on here? Gold standard. World champions, world effing champs. It's a Philly thing. All of that stuff available at the PHLY store. These things are flying off the shelves. You want to get a part of it. And also, great chance to become a diehard because we got a little bit of a sale there as well as we celebrate the Eagles championship. Zach,
my guess is when Jeffrey Lurie said that back 20 years ago now, he was actually probably just thinking ahead to when we were.
He knew what was coming.
Yeah, he knew one day there'd be PHLY, and we would be selling this great merch. And so when he said the Eagles are the gold standard, he was actually comparing it to the great merch that was coming out.
He knew. Man knows. How you doing?
I'm well.
What was the arrival home like? How excited? How fired up was Reed about the Eagles?
Oh, the kids were so excited. The kids came running out when I got out of the Uber. Felt awesome getting greeted by them. Yeah, it was really cool. Dissecting the game. Actually, I didn't say this because we actually didn't do we did spots on the show, but we didn't do a show. I asked Reed for a prediction in the game, and he said Cooper the Gene is going to have his first interception on his birthday. Now he did not
nice.
say pick six, but he said first interception on his birthday, and so he nailed that.
Very extremely Zach Berman of you, from what you've told us about how you feel about his Little League exploits, to make sure that you get in there that he did not correctly predict that it was going to be a pick six. He basically hit a dribbler to the shortstop, saying that Cooper DeJean was going to get a pick.
No,
not really worth celebrating as far as you're concerned.
That's how. No, I'm literally giving him credit on the show. But yeah, nailed it. So proud of my son for that one.
That's a great job by him.
Yeah, but no, he's ecstatic about the Eagles. He's pumped for this parade. He wants to know what a Super Bowl parade is like. He's also he was born in 2017,
which you remember because
the Eagles won the Super Bowl that year. Yeah. So he's like, they never won a Super Bowl before I was born, and now they won two of them. I'm trying to explain like causation and correlation, but I'm not going to rain on his parade. I hope there's no rain on his parade this weekend either.
There you go. How about that turn of phrase? We have some news though, Zach.
Yes.
We have some news. Now we got a lot to talk about. You and I have not really unpacked the game itself. We have some leftover thoughts, what the night was like, the locker room and the post-game party, all that stuff. But there is Eagles news to get to that we need to address at the top. What is that, my friend, the Stone Cold Newsman?
Kellen Moore has officially been named the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. This was expected. The Eagles have been expecting this. I should make that clear. This is something that behind the scenes the Eagles have talked about. Jeffrey Lurie spoke about it on the record the other night. But the Saints, in the last 10 minutes, I believe, made their official announcement. They have the Photoshop with him in Saints gear. I believe, according to our friend Nick Underhill, the Saints were up in Philly today, finalizing this with Moore. So the Eagles now are going for a new offensive coordinator. And Jalen Hurts.
Will Kellen Moore get to go to the parade, you think?
My guess is no. My guess is no. John DeFilippo did not go to the parade back in 2017 because he was working out the deal with the Vikings then. So, no. My guess is he'll be down there and probably have his press conference Wednesday.
You know what? I'm thinking back. I don't think I saw Kellen Moore after the game. I don't think I saw him in the locker room. Did you?
I did not see him partying in the locker room. I did see him walking off the field. Yes.
Off the field.
Yes.
But like when we were there in the locker room and then the little sequester afterwards, I don't think I ever saw Kellen Moore.
I did not see that.
Interesting.
But he did come back with the team, from my understanding.
Right.
Yes.
Didn't see him at the post-game party either.
Did not. No. Good. By the way, let me pump you up here. I said this on Anthony's show.
Here we go.
No. On allphly.com right now, there's a piece by Bo that is awesome. We were there at the Eagles after party, at the team hotel, and Bo used, we always talk about using your senses. Bo had not just really good observations, but like very poignant storytelling. When we were walking back from that, and you were explaining what you saw, I couldn't wait to read it, and it's beyond what I expected, or I expected to be great, but it surpassed what I even expected. So make sure you check that out on allphly.com, and we have a promo now. If you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe now, $4 a month for 12 months, so $48 a year. Look, it's worth it just to get Fran Duffy's draft guide, but all our other stories, and including this one, make sure you check that out.
Very kind of you to say. And also on there, fresh this morning, is Fran Duffy's breakdown of the Super Bowl and the 6 huge plays or storylines that jumped out to him for why the Eagles are Super Bowl champions and just dominated that game. So
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore.
So this is what I can tell you. Going back to when the Eagles hired him, the Eagles knew there was a chance this could be a 1-year arrangement, and they were still interested in hiring him then because of his ideas. I think the way I framed it on the show is that if the Eagles are really good, he's going to get a job somewhere else. If the Eagles are really bad, there's going to be a new staff. Or if the Eagles underachieve, there's going to be a new staff. The Eagles were really good. The offense wasn't electric, but they were certainly, the way they finished the season was outstanding, and Kellen Moore gets that Saints job. So now the Eagles have this search. The top internal candidate is Kevin Patullo, as we discussed. It might not be a lock. Certainly the way the Super Bowl went helps the case. I think if there was resistance to it, it was the idea that maybe you need this play calling experience, or you need this outside voice. One thing that Nick Sirianni has said is that different times call for different hires, right? And I think given the way this season's gone, I think the Eagles are going to value continuity. I think one thing they'll sell, and I spoke to Kevin Patullo last week, and I'll have a piece on allphly.com in the next few days about this, is Patullo really insists that he's not just an extension of Sirianni, that there are differences, that they can disagree, that they have different thoughts. The other thing, Kellen Moore was instrumental in he was really the point man with working with Kellen Moore.
Patullo was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin Patullo, in putting together the Sirianni, the previous offense, which include like the Jeff Stoutland run concepts, and Kellen Moore's ideas. So Patullo obviously knows the system that probably better than anyone on the staff that they've been doing this past year. He's been in a number of different places, but he has not been an offensive coordinator before. So if that's your concern, there's nothing I can tell you to push back on that. What the Eagles could do...
Also meaning he hasn't called plays.
Yes. What the Eagles could do is they could have a senior offensive assistant, because you have to remember Patullo is the passing game coordinator at this moment. So if Patullo slides over, there is that void in terms of passing game coordinator. So maybe that's someone like a Frank Reich. I don't know. But maybe you bring in someone who has experience as kind of that senior offensive assistant.
I want to spend some real time on Patullo here, but quickly before that, do you expect that quarterbacks coach Doug Nussmeier is going to leave to go with Kellen Moore to become his OC?
Yeah. So you asked Nick Sirianni a week and a half ago Nick's policy on this, and should I explain it, or do you? Go ahead. Yeah. So Nick said that he tells coaches, "This is my staff. You don't take from my staff." Now, he says sometimes you can't help it. He used the example of Nick Rallis. By the way, this is applicable for Nick Sirianni when he brought Jonathan Gannon with him, that league rules prevent...
It's funny from Nick because he brought Gannon, he brought Patullo, he brought Jason Michael.
Yeah. So in the case of Patullo...
Steichen was coming.
Yeah. So this actually has an Eagles tie. And my understanding in the situation with the Colts is that they wanted to move Mike Rowe over to wide receivers coach,
right?
Or had that already had? There was something
like that.
There was something with Mike. They wanted Mike Rowe a wide receivers coach, and so there were a few different things there. Or maybe Patullo had moved over from receivers coach, something of that nature. He was Nick's right hand man. He was literally on the plane with Nick. I don't know the Jason Michael situation. Gannon in Gannon's situation, they couldn't block him, and right. Gannon was going to be a defense coordinator anywhere. So Nick Rallis, a few years ago, the Eagles really liked Nick Rallis. I think Nick Rallis would have been a possibility to be the defensive coordinator here if the Eagles had an internal promotion, but he followed Gannon to Arizona. And I don't know how thrilled the Eagles were by that. I don't know how thrilled Sirianni was by that. But by league rules, you can't block a position coach from becoming a coordinator somewhere else. This is something that in the past, the Packers always blocked Andy Reid from getting a promotion to coordinator. You can't do that based on league rules. And I'll say this about Doug Nussmeier. He was Kellen Moore's guy. Kellen Moore brought him to the staff. He's worked with Kellen Moore in Dallas. He's worked with Kellen Moore with the Chargers. He's worked with Kellen Moore here, obviously. So 3 different places. They come from the same, but they both have Scott Linehan ties. Also, Doug Nussmeier would presumably be getting that promotion to OC, so the Eagles couldn't block it. And the other part is his son is the quarterback at LSU. So when you look at the fact that he's Kellen Moore's guy, that he would get a promotion, that it makes sense for he has a lot of family in Louisiana. I believe his wife is from Louisiana, Nussmeier. So he played for the Saints, right? So I can't imagine that there will be resistance there in terms of Nussmeier going to the Saints.
I think if you are worried about what happened to the staff in 2022 to 2023, that's reasonable, because you are also once again late in the cycle. But I think there are reasons to, and we will get to Patullo. Yeah. I think there are reasons to feel better about it. Several reasons. First of all, you're only replacing one. Second of all, I think part of the reason that the Eagles think last year went so wrong on the coaching staff is that it wasn't just the coordinators; it was a bunch of other position coach things that they had to change. Whereas this year, even if you lose Moore and Nussmeier, it seems like the defensive staff is going to be intact.
Yes.
They should, it's not ideal, but it's not the entire staff that you have to replace.
I think the offensive side of the ball is a different conversation from last year. There was a lot behind the scenes, whether it was Nick, whether it was Jalen. I think on defense, the one thing they'll say is that they were not adequately prepared for Gannon leaving. They thought Gannon was coming back. Jeffrey Lurie literally said this in the locker room after the game. When asked about Vic Fangio, he said, well, we wanted him a year ago if we knew Jonathan was leaving. Right? The whole sour grapes over Gannon was that they didn't get the hire Fangio. Because had they known Gannon was going, Fangio would not have accepted that Dolphins job and would have stayed. Like that. I mean, we've heard Fangio say it. We've heard the Eagles say it. So the Eagles basically did this search and then had to replace the staff too. Once, so that won't,
because they lost Rallis, and remember they also lost Denard Wilson because Denard Wilson was not hired.
Exactly. So so both levels there. Yep. So that's the fundamental difference. Is they've known this from before the Super Bowl. I think they're adequately. I think they have their idea in mind. Even if they hire externally, I think they know the guys they would talk to. But I think they're much better prepared for this than they were Gannon leaving. So I think that's the big difference here.
So the Patullo dynamics are interesting, and for the reasons that you've talked about, like they are as close as it gets on the staff. There's a scene in the story about that I have on PHLY about the moment that Nick and Patullo have, and you do wonder about like the juice in the building. I think it would be perceived, fairly or not, that if they hire Patullo, then like Nick got his guy. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair. It's possible that internally, Howie and Jeffrey think that this is the guy who deserves the job. They have been able to watch it up close more than we have. I think there are a couple ways to think about it. If you're worried about wasn't the lesson from this year that Nick needs to be divorced from the offense more and focus on everything else? If this is his guy, does that mean it's going to be his offense? I think it could mean, maybe he's more likely to meddle. It could also mean this is the guy he trusts more than anybody. More than anyone, he's willing to leave him alone and run the way things go on offense. And so for the reasons you talked about, Patullo being viewing himself as viewing offense a little bit differently than Nick does, I don't think that it's always impossible to know ahead of time, but I'm curious to see how this all works just from mechanics of who's got stuff in the building. And then you would also have to think, if it's not Patullo, like Patullo's got to feel some kind of way about that, right?
Yeah, I think you outlined it well. So if Nick's watching this show right now, he might push back on my description of this. But Brian Johnson, even at the beginning, was not a Nick hire.
Right.
Nick had no previous relationship with Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson was brought to him by Howie Roseman. Brian Johnson was very well. I'm not saying Nick and Brian Johnson didn't get along, but I would imagine that. Well, and I should also add, Kevin Patullo was not a Howie hire, right? Kevin Patullo was the guy Nick brought with him.
Right.
So there's different dynamics there. I think after the 2022 season, I'm not saying Nick would have preferred Patullo over Johnson, but I think it was understood that if Shane were to leave, that would be Brian Johnson's job. That was kind of the natural progression. If you recall, Patullo interviewed for OC jobs elsewhere, right? And he interviewed for the OC job here too, but they went with Brian Johnson. And I think that because the thought, like similar to how I described with Gannon, there was a thought Brian Johnson was going to be an OC here or somewhere else. The Eagles did not want to lose Brian Johnson. Last year, they could not promote Patullo. It was very clear they had to go outside for a fresh voice. So I think your description of like the trust that Sirianni would have in Patullo would be such that I don't think that he would put Patullo in that spot and then usurp Patullo's control.
Right.
Personally, I think it would be like, I trust this guy to call plays. I trust this guy to run the offense. He's been here. He's worked in different systems. As I said last week on our show, he has pre-existing relationships even before he got here with Jason Michael from Tennessee, with Aaron Moorhead from both Texas A&M and the Colts. So there's and Patullo's done a lot behind the scenes too. That there's a lot of relationships he has on that staff. So my guess is they would sell it. I'm not saying, look, behind the scenes, everything's different, but sell it as Patullo being empowered.
You know what my Frank Reich guess is?
What's that?
Completely uninformed. I feel like if Frank Reich were to join the staff, it's more likely to be as quarterbacks coach than anything else.
Really?
Because I feel like the selling point for him is, you know what, I miss just coaching. I miss just like coaching. Like I'm tired of dealing with scheme stuff and calling plays. I just want to get back to basics with the guys. And if they need a quarterbacks coach, how about just working with Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I actually think it would be. I see your point, and you hear that like Chip Kelly. The reason Chip Kelly said he left the UCLA job is he's like, I want to work with players. I don't want to do all the other stuff. So I see your point there.
You get to be a little bit more siloed.
Yeah, I actually think if and I haven't heard anything about Frank Reich getting back. Like Frank Reich,
it's completely
Frank Reich might very well
right.
enjoy being,
right.
just a retired coach or doing whatever he's doing. But I think that one thing that Nick might want is someone who's like pushing back on you, someone who's like holding you accountable. And I think one thing with Doug, the Eagles saw, is that when there were defections in the staff, there wasn't anyone who was like pushing back on Doug, right? When everyone who's on your staff is basically like beholden to you. Now, as we've discussed, Kevin Patul is the guy pushing back right now. But Patul, if he's the OC, he's not the assistant head coach anymore.
Right.
Now I know Stoutland's not. I mean, Stoutland's his own, his own island, if you will. But
no man is an island.
No man is an island. You draw the strength from others.
There you go.
But I could see that senior offensive assistant as someone who's like here to push back. On Nick, whether that is someone else, whether that is Frank Reich, that wouldn't surprise me in a staff reshuffling. I would be curious about the quarterback's coach role and who they would go with there. Because if you remember too, real quick, Alex Taney was someone who Nick coached in Kansas City, who Nick brought in here. Like that was the natural progression, and they don't really have anyone on staff right now who would be that would be the natural progression for, unless they were to like move Jason Michael over from tight ends coach to quarterbacks coach.
Right. All right, a quick break. On the other side, we'll give you some more names to consider as the potential next Eagles offensive coordinator and find out if Zach's clothes still smell like cigar smoke. Hello, Fresh. How we doing? Pretty good, because I got all my meals accounted for. If you're tired of figuring out what's for dinner every night, especially on those busy weekdays, get dinner done the easy way thanks to HelloFresh. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered to your door. HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from the fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes. It's the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you expect from HelloFresh, just with none of the work. Their lineup of prep and bake meals come together with minimal mess and only 5 minutes of prep, so your oven does most of the work, not you. Save valuable time with fewer trips to the grocery store thanks to HelloFresh Market. There's over 100 add-on items you can add to your weekly box, like quick breakfasts, packable snacks, beverages, and more. Here's the hook. You ready? Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/Eagles10FM. One item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/Eagles10FM. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit for fans of the #1 football team.
So tomorrow morning, I'm on the John Mark show. And
Flex.
Thank you. I'm excited to go on, catch up with John. But before I go on, when I go on, I know my first thought will be, man, that's some head of hair on that guy. And I'll know that the place where he helped have that great head of hair is the Glatt Hair Restoration. The Morgenstern Center for Orbital and Facial Plastic Surgery recently welcomed the Glatt Group to the practice. So what's great about this? Well, they have the same peerless approach to care. They have the same expert team, the same unmatched Glatt system, the same state-of-the-art location, the same stellar results, and under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, a highly respected plastic surgeon. Each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience. Hair restoration is all that they do, okay? Each member of this exceptionally trained team has, I said, the industry experience. They can... There's some other places that buy equipment and say they do hair restoration. Only Glad offers decades of proven results using this innovative approach and delivered by leaders in the industry. Glad Hair can help during all stages of hair loss with leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration, including laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, PRP and stem cell restoration, hair restoration surgery. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Glad Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glad Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
A couple super chats to check out from the good old-fashioned sickos. We've got Stonks Zach Berman, who says, Sickos insider tip. Before Friday's parade, I'm issuing a strong buy advisory on sucking them back with your friends. Also, I'm taking PTO to be with Emily.
Is that supposed to be, that's like a parody of me, right?
Correct.
Okay, I was going to say, if the person putting that's doing...
It was Evil Zach Berman, and then he changed it to Stonks Zach Berman, something stock-related stuff. Yeah.
You understand, stocks.
Okay, yeah, I'm following you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's something I would write, but my plans for Friday will probably include taking my son to the parade and then trying to figure out some other things from there. But yeah, taking my son to the parade for sure.
Chase Daniel Plainview says the Sirianni contract situation is interesting. He's done some good work the past 4 years, but does he really deserve Liam Cohen money?
Yeah, so I brought this up, if you remember, 2 weeks ago, where I was like, is Nick's going to look at what Liam Cohen and Ben Johnson made, and he's like, wait, look at my record here. Mm-hmm. And then Adam Schefter had a very conveniently timed report where I think he said the person with the most at stake in the Super Bowl, where he says Nick's coaching for a lot. He said he's coaching for the contract. Look, that's not put out there unless there's someone who wants that put out there that day. So my answer to that question would be, as Jalen Rose always says, you're worth what the market's willing to pay you, right? Like, what's someone worth? It's what the market's willing to pay you. So if this is the going rate for head coaches, then I do.
This is a little different. This is not an open market.
Yeah, but if Nick were to hit the open market, what do you think he would get?
Well, I don't know. But that's not a realistic threat.
I think
every other team has a head coach.
I think this is what the market price is now, and I think that's what.
I don't think that Jeffrey Lurie is going to niggle over money now that the guy just.
Yeah. So I think that certainly those prices helped the market when first year coaches are getting that. Nick has, as Adam said, Nick has been one of the lower paid coaches in the NFL, and there's nothing that you can do from a leverage perspective better than winning the Super Bowl. And so the way I framed it to Scheel, I do remember asking Scheel this, is that if they lose and you're renegotiating the contract with Nick and you're saying, and this is what the price is, and you're saying, well, is Nick really the secret here, or is it? I think that's why I framed it to Scheel. And then I think it's pretty clear, as you just said, that Jeffrey Lurie is going to pay what it takes to keep Nick Sirianni. Now, I don't think Nick Sirianni is going to become the highest paid coach in the NFL or anything, but I think that he'll get paid market value for what he's been able to accomplish.
Dean says, is it Bo Wulf or Wolf Robert? It is none of your business. Shay, what are y'all's thoughts on getting someone with DC experience and offensive assistant experience as our next OC? Sean Desai, perhaps, or Matty P? I don't know.
Is this like the reverse Juan Castillo?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And then Juan says, not sure if this has been brought up. Speaking of Juan, but can we make sure the DL wears 6 sacks shirts since the Chiefs made 0 sacks shirts for their offensive line?
Let me ask you this. Well, that's a good point. C.J. Gardner-Johnson brought back did you see the tweet that he had?
Yeah.
From 2 years ago where he said that had that game been played on real grass, the Eagles would have won.
Yeah.
Does the way the Eagles play in this make you rethink that game at all?
Yes, but not in the way that you're inferring.
Okay. Or it's not me, CJ. It's the way CJ is inferring.
I don't know that I think that was the difference in that game. But, obviously if they had a more effective pass rush, it would have changed things more. But you could probably say the same thing about the other side of that game. We can get to, I was going to say this for our conversation about the game, but when you and I had the post-game pod after that loss, my takeaway was like, defense doesn't matter.
I remember that. And I was pushing back and yeah.
Unless it's, but I believe what I said was, or what I meant was like, unless you have the best defense in football or like a really difference-making defense, that on the biggest stage against the best offenses, a good defense doesn't matter. Like great offense will always beat good defense. And this was an obvious testament to like that was a great defense, a difference-making defense, and that's why the Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
So far be it for me to, because I was the one who was saying defense matters, right? But that's actually not my read on this. My read is this shows the value of offensive line more than anything else. Is that the 2 years when the Chiefs have been vulnerable on the offensive line are the 2 Super Bowls that they've lost, right? When they lost to Tampa Bay, Patrick Mahomes was under significant duress. When they lost to the Eagles, Patrick Mahomes was under significant duress. This is not a surprise to me. And I know Andy Reid and Brett Veach philosophically view it the same way that Howie Roseman does here, where like you build along the trenches. Kansas City replaced their entire offensive line after that Super Bowl that they lost to Tampa Bay. And I think that strikes me here as like the big takeaway is we said going into the game, the Eagles are better on the line of scrimmage. That Chiefs offensive line was overwhelmed.
You were in hell, man.
And it was not by design this year, right? The Chiefs spent money, they invested draft picks, but they've had moves that just haven't worked on the offensive line. There's a reason why they had to move their left guard to left tackle in this game or like this season. There's a reason why, their second round pick, who they tried putting out there, it didn't work. Jawan Taylor, who they paid a lot of money to, has underachieved. So what strikes me, I do think, like, I don't think defense is insignificant. I've been on record. I was pushing back with you that Super Bowl night, but my takeaway here is that if you don't have a good offensive line, it's going to so hinder your ability to have a good offense when it matters on a big stage. And this was the best defensive performance I've seen in a Super Bowl since that Carolina-Denver game a few years ago. And I've heard references to the best defensive line performance since the Giants back in 2007 against the Patriots. The thing is, I think this Eagles defensive line is good. I don't think it's like the best defensive line I've ever seen them have, but they were so much better than the Chiefs defensive line, and that was Chiefs offensive line, and that was a major difference.
Yeah, I thought Fran did a really good job outlining just like the violence that they played with.
Yeah.
And you tell me if you remember who it was. I forget which story I saw it, that like in the lead up to the game, Clint Hurt with the defensive line was like, we're gonna bull rush these guys, like they are not ready for us, and that was the game plan coming in, and that's what they did. And I mean, they were just like it was like they were just calling out their manhood because like it was just, we're gonna line up and run right through you, and they were doing it on every snap. I loved that we talked about it a little bit, but that drive when they go sack, pick six. What was so impressive about that drive was that was the first time they rotated in like the backup defensive line. It was Ujima and Jalyx Hunt on the field and Josh Sweat flipping sides, and like the Eagles' backup defensive line. I thought this was a great example of just the talent disparity on these teams. You've got Joe Thuney, who is like getting Offensive Player of the Year votes from his cronies in the media because he was unbelievable enough to go from left guard to left tackle, and he's getting run over by the Eagles' third defensive end, a rookie third-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, who, by the way, and we can get to that because in some of my takeaways from this game, the growth of Jalyx Hunt, outstanding. Like what a pick that was, and how wrong was I to say like I like the idea of maybe a receiver there in the third round over a project, defensive lineman. But
we both did.
But man, his growth has been awesome, and those tools that the Eagles love have been apparent. So great job there by the Eagles, and mostly great job by Jalyx Hunt. But that's a good point. Like the depth of that group, they're so well coached by Clint Hurt. I'm glad you mentioned Clint Hurt. And you and I were both standing there when Jordan Davis came off the field, and Jordan Davis said it didn't even need to be close. Or like, why did it need to be close? And that was, I can say this with a degree of confidence here, that was the message internally to that defense is like, why does this game even need to be a close game? You guys are better than them. And that was never more apparent than the way the Eagles defensive line played against the offensive line. The fact that the Eagles didn't blitz, and I heard Zach Baun talk about this after the game. And actually, there was a really good point made by J.J. Watt on Twitter. I think I saw that you can only not blitz if your defensive line's that good, and their defensive line was that good.
All right, let's close the loop on the offensive coordinator conversation for a minute. Who are some other names who you think are worth paying attention to?
Well, if you look at play calling experience, I mean, a year ago, Bobby Slowik was like the guy, the hot coordinator, and he even got an interview with the Jets this year, and and they moved on from him. If you look at kind of quarterback coach promotion level, Bobby Slowik's quarterback coach last year, Gerard Johnson, is someone who interviewed with the Eagles. Now, Houston didn't promote him to be the OC this year. Houston went with Nick Sirianni, right, to replace Slowik. So you kind of you might look at that, but he is someone who the Eagles have had their eyes on. We know from a GM and ownership level, the Eagles have great respect for Josh McCown.
I think that's an important one.
Yeah. So that's one to watch. Now, if you're Kevin Patullo, I mean, Josh McCown doesn't have play calling experience, right? So you're getting usurped or you're getting picked. But the whole thing with Kellen Moore last year is the proven OC experience. So those are some names off the top of my head.
Well, I think that's an important question because do you think, given the way things went this year, that the Eagles are looking for a turnkey type offensive coordinator, someone who has experience calling plays, or do you think they are willing to roll the dice with someone with a little bit more variance?
Good question. I think they're willing to roll the dice with a little more variance here. I think that it's not as much like a back against the wall situation.
It's also just the case that there are not as many of those guys available.
Sure.
Like Alex Van Pelt is probably the most turnkey guy who was the offensive coordinator for the Patriots last year and then the Browns before that, but was fired by Kevin Stefanski. I think he's the only guy available unemployed who was an offensive coordinator last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah. I mean Byron Leftwich is someone who has been an OC in the past.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He's been out of football the past 2 years. Mike Jones at The Athletic had a good story recently about him wanting to get back in.
That's not true. Well, no, actually, go ahead.
What?
Not you. I was correcting myself. I forgot about Ryan Grubb, but he was just announced as the Alabama.
Yeah. I got worried Mike Jones didn't write that story. That's not true. I was like, oh God. Did I credit someone else's story? The Eagles can always if you want like an under the radar name, and this guy's play calling experience is not in the NFL, but if you're talking about Nick Sirianni's juice, Nick Sirianni's former college roommate, Tom Manning, is the tight ends coach with the Colts, has been the OC before in at Iowa State, and so has play calling experience there. If you're looking for like Sirianni connections, had Tommy Rees not been the OC, I think he would have been someone who would have been under consideration. But again, like I don't see if that would jump over Patullo. Now, do you think there's anyone internally? Like, look, Jason Michael has play calling experience, right? He's the tight ends coach. Jeff Stoutland is as revered of a position coach as there is in the league. Les Bowen spoke to him last week about potentially becoming an OC or having a higher position. It behooves me, by the way, that no team has interviewed Jeff Stoutland to be a head coach.
Yeah,
I would at least like have that conversation. I don't know why. I mean, I think his leadership is clear. His football acumen's clear. I don't know if it's you're looking for a certain type, but that's besides the point. There are, I do think it would. Yeah, I was about to use behoove. I didn't want to use behoove twice in a minute. It would benefit the Eagles to interview multiple people here. I know they're against the clock. Combines in a week, in 2 weeks, free agencies in 4 weeks. But I'm always in favor of looking at the college ranks, and I think a lot of creativity kind of filters up as opposed to filters down, and so I would interview some college OCs, but I think if they're looking for, I would think Kevin Patullo or someone who has OC experience would be the place to watch.
A couple more names for you.
Yep.
On the college front, we talked about him last time, and the Eagles didn't interview him. Old friend G.J. Kinney.
Yeah, I mean, he just got a big deal to stay at Texas State, but man, G.J. Kinney's done a great job in the college ranks.
Nate Scheelhaase, who they interviewed a couple of years ago, and then was considering the Jaguars OC job, went back to the Rams as pass game coordinator, but I believe he could still be hired away potentially.
Yeah, I think the big difference here is that this would come with play calling,
right?
Whereas with with the Jags, Liam Cohen's calling plays.
Right.
So that is a fundamental difference. You're right. He is someone that they've had their eye on before. I'll also say Nick in recent weeks has really praised Sean McVay. And if you heard Sean McVay on the pregame show called Nick Sirianni like the most underappreciated coach in the league, I think there's really growing mutual respect between those two.
Okay.
And perhaps Sirianni has seen the he knew Scheelhaase when Scheelhaase was at Iowa State. Perhaps he views these last 2 years working with McVay as like a benefit to Scheelhaase, and it improves his candidacy.
Packers pass game coordinator Jason Vrabel is a person on my mind.
I don't know much about him. I'll defer to you. Yeah.
Trying to take from that tree.
Okay.
And then the last one is, this would be the most turnkey take over the offensive side of the ball and would be a very funny follow-up to Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That would be a very funny follow-up. That would be like that
would be the most Fangio hire.
Yeah, I think of those names, I think Scheelhaase is the most likely of those names. I think McCown is interesting because of the way he's held in high regard from Lurie and Roseman. But Scheelhaase would be an option that I think would be easy for the Eagles to get behind if they're not interested in the play calling experience. Although he has play calling experience in college, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
All right. Time for another break to hear from our sponsors, and then more super chats and our thoughts on the game on the other side. Let's bet 365, huh? I know you're all raking in the money you made from the Super Bowl. Bet on the Eagles big. What a windfall. Well, that's because things are never ordinary at Bet365. We're talking 90 million users worldwide. Bet365 live streams 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. You want to open an account? Now's the time to do it, because new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah, I think back to the way Brandon Graham played, and I remember when we spoke to the Rothman ortho doctor a few weeks ago. He was spot on with everything, right? And so it shows you that Rothman Orthopedics is the place to go. Rothman has 200 plus fellowship-trained physicians who subspecialize in specific areas of the body in a multitude of orthopedic services, including hip, knee, spine, shoulder, and elbow, foot and ankle, hand and wrist, sports medicine, physical medicine, and rehabilitation, orthopedic oncology, and trauma and fracture care. Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. It's not just the volume, 255,000 of new patients and consults that Rothman is most proud of, but instead, it's their commitment to improving each of these patients' lives through their service and care. For more than 50 years, Rothman has participated in thousands of breakthrough research and clinical trials, and with the goal of advancing knowledge, developing treatment, and improving outcomes for the benefit of their patients. Rothman Orthopedics, specializing in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.phly to learn more and to make an appointment today.
Some more super chats. Check them out. Alex says, ZB, is there a book I can read to learn more about the Eagles franchise? Perhaps one written by the best reporter in the city.
Well, Bo hasn't written a book yet.
And importantly, it says reporter.
Oh, okay. Okay. Not best writer?
I'm just kidding.
Or best host. Oh, best host. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I was trying to compliment Bo there. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you can read the franchise. Philadelphia Eagles, curated history of the birds. I appreciate that. And then who knows? Maybe there'll be another book written about the season that just happened.
We'll see. Baby.
We'll see.
Say goodbye to sleep.
I never said hello to it. So.
That was good, Zach.
Okay.
That was good. I wonder what Tom Donahoe thought of Milton Williams' Super Bowl performance.
Yeah, look.
Honest question. Do you think Howie texted him after the game?
No. I mean, not about that. Look, I'll say this.
I don't know.
Aleem McNeil is a really
Yeah.
good player. So
I would honestly would not be surprised at all if Howie, in joking, when it was like, how about that Milton Williams performance? I think that is very much within his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think Milton needed that performance to be validated. Milton's been a really good player. I said this before. I'm afraid I'm trying to say less, but I also don't want to keep repeating myself with points. Milton Williams is going to be the player who, in free agency, football fans in Kalamazoo and in Des Moines,
the football fans in Kalamazoo get such a pop from you. It's unbelievable.
Football fans in Kalamazoo,
they are so overrepresented based on the percentage they are.
And Des Moines,
yeah, Kalamazoo and Des Moines. There are no other like medium-sized cities from California to New York, as far as you're concerned.
I just love saying Kalamazoo and Des Moines. He's the player who football fans will be stunned. Like, that guy made that, because I do think Milton Williams is going to make huge money this offseason. The Super Bowl performance helps, but I thought that before the Super Bowl. You and I have talked about
25 years. He's gonna be 26 in April. Wow.
Yeah. You and I have talked about like why the Eagles wouldn't extend him. And my answer has been because like it behooves him to hit the open market. He's going to make a lot of. You're laughing because I said behooves again. He's going to make a lot of money. I thought that going into the year, nothing that happened this year disproved that. And I think Milton Williams is it's good to be Milton Williams right now. Buy Milton Williams stock if you can. Stunk Zach Berman.
Stunk Zach Berman. Speaking of stunk, Zach Berman has a super chat. He says, burning super chat budget. Is Nolan's left arm okay?
It looked okay when he was flashing the champagne all around.
We're all out of liquor. He said.
I got sprayed by him. He wasn't spraying me like out of friendliness. Like I don't think no one's like, "Hey Zach, come here," but he was spraying it all. I don't know what.
Listen, I saw Julia's eyes do the same thing mine did when you said he wasn't spraying me out of friendliness.
The two of you have the same sense of humor. Okay. He wasn't spraying the champagne like at me. He was just enjoying himself in there. And but he looked healthy enough to do that. I'll put it that way.
Let me just quickly go through it because he did not play quite as many snaps as he had been playing. So I want to just look at the first, second, third quarter snaps for the defense, because it did feel like for instance, Sweat was flipping sides, which is usually a Nolan Smith thing when they're trying to round out that three-man rotation. So the first 3 quarters of the game, snap-wise, of the 35 snaps, Josh Sweat played 28 of them. Nolan Smith played 20 of them. Jalyx Hunt played 17, and Brandon Graham played 5. So I think there was something going on with Nolan Smith, because usually he's the one playing more snaps than Sweat.
There clearly was, but I don't think it's the type of thing. Look, it's not.
I mean, if they had to play next week, you might have to worry about it. But
exactly. Yeah.
And then L8908 says, where does Hurts fit in with the offensive coordinator search? He's now a Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback. Good, important question, Zach.
Yeah, I think Hurts has juice, and he's not afraid to use it. I mean, that's the best way I would put it. Is that Jalen? I think Jalen will be further emboldened after this, and Jalen is very clearly. There was a quote from Jeffrey Lurie after the game when I was speaking to him, where he said Jalen was the least of his concerns going into the game. He said he went into the game thinking he said he had no concern about Jalen. He said he knew we have our quarterback, and to me that's interesting, because like if there was ever any suggestion that Jalen's just kind of like a part in this, I've always said his biggest fan's the owner, and I still feel that way.
So you think it would behoove the Eagles to ask him what he thinks?
I don't think
about the coordinator.
I think that Jalen is going to want his voice heard on a lot.
Sure.
This offseason.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, this is one where I'm sure we will maybe never find out exactly how this whole process works, but I am curious what they decide to do behind the scenes. All right, Zach, we got 10 minutes to talk about the Super Bowl.
We can go beyond.
Yeah. We got more shows this week. We got the whole rest of the offseason. We got a lot of time to talk about the Super Bowl. But Give me like the things that are really bubbling to the top for you that you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, the first thing, and I've referenced this, is that the Eagles went in this game believing they were the better team. And that jumped out to me leading up to the game. That jumped out to me in my sentiments at the game. That jumped out to me after the game in talking to some players. And look, the numbers back up why. You know, I was just looking at the split. Since the bye week, the Eagles are 16-1, plus 238 in point margin, plus 28 in turnover margin. Now, this includes the postseason. Those are historic numbers. Like, those are numbers that put them up against some of the great teams in NFL history. You know, the 2007 Patriots had like a plus 300 something point margin. But man, I mean, that is ridiculously impressive. And it just jumped out to me going into the game that the Eagles I said they were nobody's underdogs. Like, they expected to do that. And it was very clear. Obviously, I didn't expect 34-0, but I remember asking Jeffrey Lurie about, like, could you in your wildest dreams have seen this? And his point was, well, they respect the Chiefs quite a bit, but he's like, look what we did in the championship game. And that really stood with me because I think the Eagles viewed themselves as the heavyweights in this game.
So if you include the playoffs, week one for the playoffs, since 2000, the Eagles' point differential is 7th best. So you've got the 2007 Patriots, who were way out in front. Yeah. Then the 2001 Rams, who did not win. The 2000 Ravens, the 2013 Seahawks, the 2016 Patriots, the 2019 Ravens, who did they win? No. And then the 2024 Eagles. And
did they have a negative point differential going into the bye, or?
I think they did because of the Bucs game, right?
Yeah, because of the Bucs game, yeah. So think about, so think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to make a real case for like best team of all time or best team of 2000 when you weren't even the 1 seed in your conference. But like, it is also true that they didn't lose a game all season long when Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown finished the game, right? And the only game they did lose after the bye was when Jalen Hurts got hurt.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think it is there's a difference between greatest and best, sure. Right? I think the arc of their season is not one of the best of all time, but I think this team at this point of the season is as good of a team as I think, like, if they were to play a game tomorrow at their best, or the team that lines up in the game of the Super Bowl, I think this team would have a chance against anybody.
If you did one of those fictional brackets where where all the Super Bowl teams were in there and you pick them like how they played in the Super Bowl, the Eagles might win that.
Yeah, and they played their best at the end of the season. I had this in the story today. Their point differential for just the last 2 games of the season, the championship game and the Super Bowl, the 3rd best of all time in NFL history, behind the 84 Bears and the 89 Niners. Yeah. So, like, that's the conversation that you're talking about. I mean, they were awesome.
Yeah, if you were one of those people complaining about them not practicing during the bye, I mean, enjoy your crow right now, right?
Oh, enjoy your crow.
Yours.
Huh?
Your floor. Now, I thought we're going back and forth. No, not your crow.
No, I don't even know what I was going to say. I'm just thinking about.
We're coming up with our takeaways.
Yeah, I know, but I had something else and now I can't remember it.
Was it a joke or was it a?
No, it was a thing. It was a thing. Little Miss Run the Ball, Claire says, ZB, will you buy Sloan an Eagles Super Bowl Barbie?
Of course, but it doesn't. I would buy her any Barbie. It doesn't need to be an Eagles Super Bowl one. But if she wants that, then sure. I bought her a pink shirt in New Orleans that said, somebody who loves you went to New Orleans and bought you this T-shirt. What? What's so funny about that?
It's funny because we were looking at the Super Bowl merchandise together, and you're like, I gotta find a knockoff something because this is too expensive. And so you found.
But that was for slow.
The thing that is in every town you go to.
But this one had New Orleans stuff on it, so
sure.
Yeah. I did find knockoff stuff for Reed, but they didn't sell the knockoff stuff in youth sizes. So
brutal.
Yeah.
Then I made an airport purchase when the stuff the next day.
Rookie move.
Not a rookie move. I just was willing to pay. Grace says, unrelated Q. but always wondered, when you're in the press box and the opposing team is getting blown out in the game, do the Chiefs beat writers get dejected, or is it more professional? What is it like? Great coverage throughout the season. Thank you. Thank you, Grace.
Grace, thank you. Yeah, I think everyone in the press box is kind of well, typically everyone is keyed in on their job.
Yeah, so I would say aside from Commanders games, that's pretty much the case.
They're keyed in on their job. So at that point, especially, I've been in those situations where if you're at like the newspaper, you're running story. You have if they win on the screen, if they lose on the screen, and so you're focused on doing the best story you can, even at like places that don't have print papers but have something up at the buzzer. You're focused on the if they win takeaway or if they lose takeaway. So that tends to be what you're focused on.
Mikey says, is the Super Bowl confetti for sale? Did Jeffrey scoop up some of his on the way off the field after the game? I mean, I'll tell you what, if it's for sale, Zach, you and I might have a little black market to take advantage of.
I would never dare. Go on.
Chill Bill, the sickos can't wait for the the sickos can wait for the book. Get some sleep, CB.
Yeah, don't worry, I will get sleep this offseason.
When we had the meetup on Saturday in Nolans, there was a literal sleep doctor there.
Yes, he told me to email him. Yeah. So look, I get it about the sleep. I promise you,
he gets it. He's just not going to listen.
Mr. V, I know Mr. V is watching right now. Mr. V is very concerned. I promise this is something that is important to me. And I'm going to focus on it. It is important to me. We don't need to keep spending precious airtime on it.
I mean, obviously we are going to.
Okay. I have some more Super Bowls to take.
Go ahead.
No.
Well, go ahead, because if you have something, I don't know where I'm going to go next. Go ahead.
Well, I want to kind of get the behind the scenes from the locker room, from the party. Can I prompt you on that?
If you want to. That's the prompt?
Yeah. What do you remember about the scene? Like, what stood out? I thought, I've seen national reporters put out there that this was a more raucous celebration than what they're used to seeing from a winning locker room. I've covered 2 Eagles winning locker rooms. This one was more raucous than the one in 2018 for sure. This one was like a nightclub, right? I mean, this was,
it was more than a nightclub. I haven't been to a nightclub like that.
I can say like I was trying to capture more scene than talk to people, but I couldn't hear anything in my recording. I don't know how these reporters are quoting verbatim here unless they were like writing it down in shorthand, because I couldn't hear anything in my audio back. Now, shout out to John Clark, NBC Sports Philly. They have some great microphones because they were able to get some of the audio, but I just heard music lyrics. I mean, but the cigars, the drinks, I mean, it was very clear. Like I remember Malcolm Jenkins had a specific.
It was Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Was it Blue?
Blue. Yeah. That's a good one, right? Yeah. Joy gives her seal of approval.
Yeah.
He has specific Johnny Walker Blue that he was saving for that, and he took off the shelf. But there wasn't champagne sprayed in that locker room back in 2018, right?
I think there was.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, I remember getting champagne on me in 2018.
Okay. Well, not to this level.
No, it was certainly not to the same level. I think a part of that was logistics. Like it was a much bigger locker room in Minneapolis, and so like people were a little bit more sequestered with their groups. And then, as you noted, like Doug gave the post game speech. This was a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And there was like a natural dance floor or whatever it was. But yeah, it was more raucous. I wonder if part of that is this was a slightly younger team.
It could be that. Sure. I think it's also probably, I think one of the messages, whether it was implicit or explicit, was save the celebrate until the end. Like, we're not happy to be here, team. And I saw that anecdotally, but I also saw Howie Roseman quoted. It might have been an Albert Breer story in Sports Illustrated. I apologize if I've read so many stories.
Thanks for watching on Fast, by the way. Make sure that you check out the rest of the episode on allphly.com.
But he said, like, in whichever story this was, I think it was Albert's. I hope I am citing it correctly, that 2 years ago, he said they were like tourists in Italy. They were all taking pictures everywhere. And he's like, this year they were so locked in. It was a business trip. That was the messaging all along. So they were. I don't know if this was the case, but maybe the message was save the celebrating for the Super Bowl. And even I thought the locker room after the championship game was a little bit more subdued than it was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't there, so
or
take your word for it.
At least I recall asking Nick because I asked. So here's two things. I asked Nick 2 weeks ago when he walked in, what was on your mind? He said the next game. He's like, because we've already been here before, right? So he kind of set the tone then. I asked him that same question the other day, and he's like, yesterday morning, and he said, well, clearly not the next game. And he said his thought when he walked in there was like, this here is what we'll remember. You know, you have, he said you have footage of the game, you have pictures of the confetti falling. He's like, but what will last is like embracing your teammates in the locker room after the game. And it's probably similar to that Patuo hug you referenced in your story.
How worried are you about the Eagles' pass defense, given Xavier Worthy's big performance, 8 for 157 and 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, not the least bit.
They got to fix this.
I've seen. Look, I haven't been on social media as much as I've been in the past. Is that
there's been some back and forth about like praise for Xavier Worthy's game. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, he had that.
It was over.
Yeah, he had that 50-yard touchdown.
It was a nice play.
The game was over.
It was a nice throw, but like, what are we talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, the game was basically, was it 40-6?
Yeah.
Like, calm down. All right, we got a lot more to go.
Are you wrapping this up?
Yeah, I was gonna wrap it up.
I just want you to give a quick insight on the after party.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it was cool.
I want people to read the story, but there's people,
Oh, I'm not going to talk about that. Read the story if you want to hear about the after party, the Eagles after party.
But you don't want to share, like.
What do you want me to share?
I don't know. Anything you.
No,
we're talking about observations
the story.
Here.
Become a diehard.
Okay.
I'm not giving it away for free.
I'll say this. One thing that jumps out to me there is I lose sight of this sometimes.
Looking's free. Reading's going to cost you.
Look, I'm in the locker room throughout the week. I'm talking to players, coaches, sometimes executives. I see like the training staff, the equipment staff. I see the people who touch the football side of the building, right? I think when I'm at these events, and in particular like that party, what jumps out to me is how meaningful this is to so many
100%.
people in the organization. And I need to keep that in perspective. I try to give a shout out a lot to people on the equipment staff and the training staff. And when I talk about some of the under the radar people in the organization, but there are two sides to that building. And the other side, the non-football side of the building, those people work their butts off year round, right? Like everyone's different, but sometimes like not at the same, it's not prioritized in some cases the same ways like the football side. But they work, they work hard, and for a lot of them, like the reward is like you're part of this professional sports organization that you see them get to the Super Bowl and you get to experience these it's like this perk of the job. And I think there's a lot of pride in that building for this organization and kind of the role that they have in this market. So when there's something like that, that's what really resonated to me. There is different people in there who felt the joy of victory, even though their fingerprints are not on the ball or on the players. They felt the joy of that winning.
I think that's beautifully said. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of them have some really good dance moves too.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I just seen everybody on the dance floor. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Everybody there, and like also all of their families. Like it is a whole. Like this is the whole reason you go to work every day.
Yes, exactly.
Was to get that moment, right? Yeah. And you sacrifice time away and all that stuff. Like that's what it's all about. And so, like you feel so happy for them.
Yeah, and look, we have to talk about the team every day. Like they're selling the team every day, and it's much. I don't want to say much better to do the job for them, but I think morale in a workplace, in a football office, is often dictated by the wins and losses of a team too. And I imagine that this is probably a better place to work this week than it would be this time a year ago.
All right. We got a lot more to come. We'll be with you tomorrow and Thursday. And we're still trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do for the parade on Friday. Because, our show is usually at 2:00, but that's when the ceremony is supposed to be. So how can we work that out? We'll figure all of that out as the week goes on. But you can rest assured we'll be back tomorrow at 2:00. So for Zach Berman and Julia and all of us here at PHLY, we thank you for watching. Make sure that you check out the All City store, become a diehard, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Subscriber numbers are going through the roof. Yes. So make sure you join, and, have a good day. How could you not have a good day after the Eagles win the Super Bowl? We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.